5% tariffs, that in itself could be devastating for certain companies, probably not for the economy. But really what's a bigger problem here is just the idea of these tariffs coming out of left field. This is not something that's going to be used for open economies, and it creates all kinds of problems about what to anticipate in North America just from the business agreement itself. What does this mean for NAFTA? What does this mean for the business community?
Well, I think that's the question, because it was such an abrupt decision that you wonder if, if there's another objective behind it. Mexico is going ahead with the ratification of USMCA, so I think that's good. And I think that's wise to just go ahead, get it out of the way, and not stall it. But, the interesting thing is I can't imagine how you can negotiate a comprehensive immigration agreement or agreement for asylum seekers over the weekend. So it seems to me that the president wants to put the tariffs on. He wants to get this going as a way of pressuring Mexico. I don't think 5% is going to destroy the Mexico automobile market. If you look at the fluctuation of currencies, that 5% will be less a lot of the times. But the problem is just the logic behind it. We're taxing American consumers and American companies in order to punish Mexico for not doing enough about asylum seekers. So there's no logic to this. And you have to imagine and conclude that there has to be a political underpinning to this whole strategy.
What was your reaction when you first heard this?
I thought, frankly, that this was a diversion, because if you remember, this was happening a couple of days or right after Mueller testified. I don't want to get cynical. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories. But the following day, all of a sudden, out of the blue, here comes a 5% tariff on Mexican goods.
Although, this is a president who likes having tariffs and using them as a negotiating tool, likes having them in place.
Well, I think it was a tremendous distraction from one thing to the other. All of a sudden, we're all focused on Mexico. Yes, he believes tariffs are a great leverage. He believes that tariffs are a gun to the head of who's ever negotiating with him, and that is his way of getting a good bargain.
So he wanted to distract from the report that showed no collusion.
I mean, I'm just saying there are so many theories. I'll tell another theory, Joe.
I heard that from some of our.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of
left. Austin had that.
Oh, no. You're hearing this now from a right guy, from a conservative.
Okay, yeah, never Trump.
Let me ask you as a conservative,
from a never Trumper.
What about the core issue at hand about stemming the flow through Mexico, or at least keeping more of them in Mexico, which is really what the administration seems to want to move up the agenda? That has worked. You're obviously seeing discussions between two countries about that very issue. And Mexico has had a lot of criticism levied at it about this, that they haven't enforced their own laws about keeping immigrants in Mexico while they get processed. Is that going to get addressed or not? Because it looks like this president is going to make that an issue around these tariffs. So that's the core issue we should be talking about here.
Yeah, I agree. I think the thing is the president going to be effective? It's easy to make something an issue. It's a lot harder to be effective at solving the issue. This can be solved, and you're right, a lot more can be done. But it takes a plan. It takes, do you build detention centers in Guatemala? Do you do something at the southern border? Do you do something throughout Mexico? But it requires cooperation between three countries, a negotiation. It takes a little bit of patience because it may take 6 months, but you're not going to do it over the weekend. Another theory that we just need to think about, is that this 5% is something the president can point to and say that is the payment for the wall. Remember, I told you that Mexico was going to pay for the wall. Congress would not allow the president to appropriate that money, but it's a fantastic talking point for the elections. I brought the money home. And it's the Democrats and other Republicans in Congress who are pro-crime. So there is a big political foundation to this whole argument. And Republican or Democrat, let's look at this objectively.
So what do you think ultimately happens?
I think the 5% will go into place. It's very interesting that Republicans are pushing back, so it may be that Republicans or the Congress passes something between the first 5% and the second 5%, the second group of tariffs, which would be in October, and then we stay at 5. And Mexico will have to decide whether they move up or whether they stay. It's a bit ironic because what Mexico can do is say, I'm not going to tax my citizens. I'll leave it alone and let the U.S. stay at 5. But I do think the president's going to get a lot of pushback. I think we have overplayed our hand on tariffs, not just here, but with China. And I think everybody's had enough.